Hi everybody, Bob Pickett visiting with the legendary Steve Wariner. It is good to see you, man.
Good to see you, long time.
It has been a while. Now, let's talk about how you first got to Nashville. I want to take you back. Now, tell me the real story.
Well, the story on that is I was in high school, a senior in high school, and I was playing a club called the National Country Club on the west side of Indianapolis. And they used to, the club used to bring in, around the time I just became a senior in high school, they started bringing in some country acts. It really was cool. They brought in a lot of cool people. Every 4 or 5 months they'd bring someone else in. Well, I would go down and play with some of my buddies that played there, the house band, and missed a lot of Friday at schools. You know, I played Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Kind of didn't feel so good on a lot of Fridays, you know, but staying out late. But one night they had Dottie West playing in there, and my friend Daryl Young, he called and said, "Man, you got to be down here next Saturday. Dottie West coming in." And so, and this is really cool. Paul Franklin, who was the great steel guitar player, one of the best in the world, was playing with Dottie. He was a kid. He's my same age as me. So I knew that, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to go see Dottie, but I'm going to see Paul Franklin too." And we later became like great friends, still are best friends. But so I went down, sat in with the house band, played some that night, and I'm singing a song, and I hear a female voice, and Dottie's not even played yet. Their show's coming up after our show. So I hear a voice, a girl singer, and I look around, and Dottie comes out on stage with me. And I'm like freaking out, Bob. I'm like, man, I never even met her or anything. She heard me, I guess, in the back, and just said, "Well, I'm going out singing with this guy." And she came out, and we sang. I got finished, and I was like, the crowd came down to the stage. Everybody was gathered around, and
you were just a senior.
I was, you know, heck, I just turned 17, and she said, "Do something else." So we did Together Again. We were just doing old country classics and stuff, and we did 4 or 5 songs, and then the place was going crazy, and she said, "Well, we're getting ready to play. Sit in with our show and just play with us on our show." And I go, "Sure, I don't know the show," but I sat in and played acoustic guitar, and then after the show, her and her soon-to-be husband, there was a drummer by her, and they took me out on the bus and said, "We're looking for a bass player. Our bass player's getting ready to quit, and his wife's having a baby, and we're looking for a guy to take his place. Would you join the band?" And I said, "I'm a senior in high school. You know, let me figure this out. I'm just a kid here, you know." But so I drove home 90 miles an hour to 30 miles away. We lived 30 miles from there, and I woke my mom and dad up and told them about the news, and my dad was like, "Oh yeah," you know. My mom was kind of like, "Now what? You know, no." And so that's how it happened. And luckily, though, Bob, my grades were pretty good. About 3 months later, it was coming up on semester break, and my grades were fair. They weren't bad. They weren't great, but they were okay. And so I went into the counselor at school, and I told him what happened. And I said, "I'm really wanting to see if I could graduate early and maybe move to Nashville and get on the road, and that's what I want to do." And so they were all into it. And I had a half a credit of government that I had to take for the next semester. That was a mandatory for that last semester. And if they said, "If you go around and talk to all your teachers and get the okay and get all your tests and all that done, and you pick up that half credit of government." So I did a correspondence thing and got the last credit on the road. I'd study on the bus with Dottie West, you know, traveling down the road in an old bus, you know, doing lessons, you know. And finally, I graduated. And I say that to young people. I always say, "Hey, I got my diploma and everything." I always stress that, but it was an interesting time.
Well, are you also on the recording of some of Dottie's hits? Were you on the radio a lot?
Not much. I was at a lot of those recordings. I was at the sessions, but I was so young and green. I did sing on a couple things. I did a duet with her that never was released. It's called "You're Too Much for My Two Arms." Red Lane wrote it. I remember it too. I remember the song. We cut it at RCA Studio A. Jerry Bradley produced it, and it's in the can there at RCA. I'd love to get my hands on it.
It's never come out at all?
No, it never came out or anything. It's, excuse me. And so I also sang on a couple things with Larry Gatlin. He was her protege at the time when I met her. She had just brought him to Nashville, and I was soon to become her new protege. But I sang on a couple background parts on a couple things on albums here and there, but nothing that you'd know probably, just album cuts. But and then I got to play bass on a couple things later as time went on. I didn't play on big records, but I played on for a Tennessee, like an ad campaign for the governor of Tennessee, and some little things like that. I got to play with her on a few little things here and there as time came on. I was with her 3 years. You know, so and then after that I was with the late Bob Lumen. I worked with Bob after I left Dottie. Met Bob. I'd met Bob actually when I was working for Dottie, and when I left Dottie, I'd left her after 3 years to stay in town. Really, I'd signed with her publishing company. I was writing for her company, which was administered by Combine Music, which they had Chris Christopherson and Gatlin wrote for her company, First Generation, and so there I was, had a writer's deal. Really couldn't write a song. I was trying real hard, but I was hanging around with Dottie, and she was, I mean, you know, I met Willie Nelson and Roger Miller and, you know, Christopherson. All these great writers were hanging around. I was just a kid, you know, going like, good Lord, what am I doing here, you know? But it was a great learning experience. I got to hang around and see these people and watch them as a fly on the wall sort of thing. And after I left her, I left her to go off the road to stay in town and just write. You know, my deal was, quite honestly, I was wore out as much as we worked. On the road 3 years of touring with her, and then I really wanted a break from the road and just write. And I wasn't away from her 4 months, and I saw Bob Lumen at the Opry one night. You got to go to Texas with me, man. I'm going to Houston. You got to go from Houston and Dallas and back on 2 shows. That's all I'm doing. You got to go with me. My bass player just quit. And I said, when you leave? And he goes, in about 2 hours. You know? So I hopped on the bus with Bob and went to Houston and Dallas and came home and wound up staying with him 2.5 years.
Wow, that's why you've also recorded Lonely Women.
That's right. It was a tribute to Bob, yeah. Because Bob had a great hit on that song. It's a great record, and I loved Bob. He was a good East Texas boy. He's from over around Blackjack, Texas. He was right outside Nacogdoches.